Good morning and welcome to the Burbank-Glendale-Pasadena Airport Commission meeting. At this time, I'd like to request a roll call.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Commissioner Garpetian.
Here.
Commissioner Tornick.
Here.
Commissioner Devine.
Here.
Commissioner Madison.
Here.
Commissioner Wiggins.
Here.
Commissioner Selvage.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you all stand so we can pledge allegiance, please? Face the flag, put your hand over your heart and repeat with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment. Our public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Okay. We had a city councilman. Did he arrive yet?
No, he has not.
Okay. When he comes, he will step in. Go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. President, I believe the rest of the items are for specific items to the agenda. We'll be calling the public comment when the agenda item occurs.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Thank
with
you.
that, if we could have an approval of the agenda, and then we'll move on to the consent calendar, please.
Okay.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Okay. We're down to the commission items for commission action.
If I could, the consent calendar of the commission would be appreciated.
Okay.
So I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're down on items for commission action.
Yes, sir. The first item we have is this is the first meeting in July under your resolutions. The commission elects its new slate of officers. We sent the current roster of officers as well as committee assignments to the commission earlier for your consideration. And with that, staff seeks ready to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend a slate of officers that would be Commissioner Adams as president, Commissioner Selvage as vice president, Commissioner Garpetian as secretary, Commissioner Devine as treasurer, and Commissioner Wiggins remaining as auditor, and Frank Miller serving as assistant secretary.
Okay.
So I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Are there any other?
Are there any other nominees? Sorry, I'm just got a lunch appointment. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. Moving right along.
With regard to the committee assignments, Mr. President, it's your prerogative, but I would recommend that the existing standing committees remain as they are. Doesn't require a motion.
Call.
Yeah, and that, as far as I'm concerned, I accept that. Thank you. So, okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Items for commissioner approval.
The first item we have for the commission's consideration is a rehabilitation of escalators. Mr. Anthony DeFrenza, your Director of Engineering and Maintenance, will be making that presentation.
Good morning, all. Based on the recommendation of the Operations and Development Committee, staff seeks approval to authorize 2 task orders in the total amount of $171,406 to Elevators, etc., for the rehabilitation of the 2 escalators in the North Tower, which is on the terminal side of the elevated walkway leading towards the Regional Intermodal Transportation Center, or RITC. The cost of this will be paid via an available CFC construction fund. Therefore, there will be no impact to the adopted fiscal year 2020 budget. In December 2018, the Commission awarded a contract to Elevators, etc. for preventative maintenance services and on-call repair services. for all of the vertical conveyances for which the authority is responsible for maintaining. Performance by elevators, et cetera, to date has been satisfactory, and staff can attribute a noticeable decrease in the frequency of conveyance outages to their preventative maintenance services. Comparing a 3-month period from this year to the prior year, when we had another elevator service company, the number of service calls were reduced from 18 to 5, and the total cost of those service calls were reduced as well, from $16,000 to $14,000. Based on information collected by elevators, et cetera, during their preventative maintenance, they identified a need to complete a thorough rehabilitation of both the escalators in the North Tower. The escalators were originally installed and commissioned in 2014 as part of the Regional Intermodal Transportation Facility construction project, and to date have not received a thorough cleaning or rehabilitation by either of the prior two elevator, escalator maintenance companies. The proposed rehabilitation includes removing all the steps, adjustment and realignment of the track, complete cleaning of the escalator interior throughout the entire escalator length, flushing the gearbox, replacing the oil, replacing the step chains, and installing new steps. This thorough rehabilitation is outside the scope of regular preventative maintenance, but due to the condition of the escalators, is warranted. Elevators, et cetera, also expressed a concern that our annual permit renewal issued by the state is in subject of not getting renewed if we don't complete this thorough rehabilitation. The permits are set to expire August 22nd and November 13th of this year, and so we would attempt to accommodate all of this work in advance of those dates. If the committee, I'm sorry. As mentioned previously, funding for the proposed rehabilitation will be provided through existing CFC construction funds for the RITSI. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
I remember we had problems with the escalators on construction. Is this related to that?
No, because that was addressed by the manufacturer who was on site for the first 2 years of operation, which was the oldest manufacturing company, and they had replaced that. The issue that was subsequent later was the type of handrail belt, that we needed to change the type of handrail belt to have that was more attuned toward being outside as opposed to an inside type of operation, and those belts have been changed out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? So,
Right. What impact is this going to have on the ability of people to get up and down during our hours of operation?
Yeah, it will require a closure of each escalator, obviously at different periods, for about a week. And so there's an elevator accessible to the public that allows for transport, and there's obviously stairs. But each escalator itself will be out of service for about a week.
Thank you.
thank you. Any other comments? Thank you.
This was recommended by the Operations Committee, so I'll move the item.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? What? Okay. Yes. I understand the council member has arrived. Would you like to address the group, sir?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you so very much for taking me on the top of the hour. My name is David Rue. I'm a Los Angeles City Council member representing communities throughout Los Angeles from Miracle Mile all the way to Toluca Lake and Sherman Oaks. And as the council member representing many of the hillside communities in Los Angeles, I wanted to especially come here today to support, in particular, Toluca Lake, as well as the hills of Sherman Oaks and Studio City. Along with many of the other community members who are here today from the various communities, as well as I know my colleague, Councilmember Paul Krikorian, as well as Councilmember Paul Koretz, their offices might also be represented here today, as well as the Burbank-Glendale-Pasadena Airport Authority for holding this meeting today. And for over about a year now, my office has been speaking to hundreds of residents about the Southeast Valley impacts from the FAA's Next Gen Metroplex program that had on their lives negatively. And I'm sure you've heard it many times before, but I too myself within the city of Los Angeles, we've been super frustrated. And I've spent the past year alongside with Mayor Garcetti, City Attorney Mike Fuhr, Council members Paul Kokorian and Paul Koretz, asking the FAA to come to the table and work with our communities. As a matter of fact, this past legislative lobby trip to Washington, D.C., I personally made it a point to meet with the FAA. And I know many of you have all as well. And to put it nicely, it feels like it's falling on deaf ears. But, you know, the FAA has been very disappointing and failed to live up to the ideals of government, of good government, transparency, honesty, and community engagement. You know, several months back, at my and the City of LA's urging, and I know many of us urging, FAA did come out once. And this is the difference between local government and the FAA, where myself and I know Burbank, as well as many members of the City Council, have been meeting with community members, meeting after meeting, hearing their concerns. While the FAA, unfortunately and disappointingly, responded by escorting everybody out and bringing Burbank Police Department to close down the meeting. So that's the big difference, and that's what we need change on. And, you know, I've submitted a detailed letter on several occasions from the City of LA, as well as in the City of LA. I also want to let people know that we've hired consultants. We've introduced legislation to try to get through to the FAA on this problem, as well as set aside money to hire an outside attorney as well. And I know and we clearly know what the problem is. You just need to go to the communities of Toluca Lake, Sherman Oaks, or Studio City, and you'll hear the constant noises of planes flying overhead all hours of the night, day and night. So I thank you so much for holding this meeting. And I do want to acknowledge this past Friday, we did receive a letter from the Burbank-Glendale-Pasadena Airport Authority that did highlight, and I haven't seen the letter myself, but I just been told that there will be a task force with all of our communities in Los Angeles, with a lot of our surrounding communities and the FAA. So I hope the FAA this time will actually step up to the plate and work with us to solve this issue. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. Now we'll return to the agenda. Public comment? No. 5B. Oh, I'm sorry. Amendments to the property services agreement? Okay. Do we have a comment on that?
If I may, sir, if I can bring up Mr. Hardiman to make a presentation.
Sorry.
It is for an amendment to a professional services agreement with Triffiletti Consulting. This was presented to the legal committee. These are for services in support of the environmental requirements that the authority has. Mr. Hardiman.
Thank you, Mr. Arkanaka. Good morning, Commissioners. President Adams, congratulations on your appointment.
Thanks.
Staff comes to the authority this morning with a recommendation for an amendment number 1 to the agreement with Triffiletti Consulting. This agreement was originally entered into in August of 2018 for 2 projects. The first was to assist staff with some new requirements being promulgated by the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Separately, staff was working with Southern California Association of Governments, and it had been identified that there was a funding source that was available through the Build America program that was very attractive to the authority for its replacement terminal, and the vehicle to be able to get those projects in eligibility for those funding was through the update to the regional transportation plan that was being promulgated by the Southern California Association of Governments. Both of those projects are still ongoing, and staff comes to you today with a recommendation to add $55,000 in scope to the Trifoletti consulting agreement. The split between those two projects is $30,000 for continued assistance for the work with the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and $25,000 working with the Southern California Association of Governments on the update to the regional transportation plan. In recognition of a full agenda this morning and a full gallery, I can conclude my comments at that point. However, if there are any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Whit?
The legal committee approved this item by a vote of 2-0 at our last meeting, so I would move the item.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Where did we get again?
The next item for the Commission's consideration is the taxiway rehabilitation project that was presented to the Operations Committee this morning. Mr. DeFrenzi will be making the presentation.
Good morning again. Staff seeks Commission approval for the award of a construction contract in the amount of $2,099,920 to Sully Miller Contracting Company for the Taxiway Alpha Rehabilitation Project construction. Award of a professional services agreement in the lump sum amount of $108,725 to RDM International for engineering of record construction administration services, on-site technical services, and material testing associated with that construction. Approve a project budget for authority staff to facilitate construction management, contract administration, and field observation in an amount not to exceed $75,000, and approval of a project contingency in the amount of $150,000 for any unforeseen conditions that may arise during construction. A little background. Taxiway Alpha serves as the primary commercial taxiway with access to runway 1533. The last rehabilitation was completed in 2009. And the taxiway is now showing significant signs of deterioration. The Pavement Condition Index is a metric used by the FAA to rank airfield pavement conditions and demonstrate a need for rehabilitation. And the PCI of Taxiway Alpha, based on a 2017 survey, is 46 out of 100, indicating that the condition of the taxiway is considered poor. The proposed rehabilitation consists of a full-depth pavement replacement in the keel section, which is the middle 45 feet of the taxiway, which would result in a finished 8-inch thick pavement section, and the replacement of the top 3 inches of pavement, the full width of the taxiway, and associated connectors. In all, approximately 375,000 square feet of existing asphalt will be rehabilitated. Staff received 5 bids in response to publicly posted requests for bids. The 5 bids are indicated on the screen. The authority has adopted a disadvantaged business enterprise program, and our triennial DBE program goal is 13%. However, based on the specifics of individual projects, the DBE goal is established unique to each federally funded project. And the specific project goal for the Alpha rehabilitation was 24.86%. As you can see, Sully Miller provided information that represented a commitment of 25.27% DBE, which is above the defined project goal. In terms of schedule, the contract for period for performance is 90 calendar days, or about 3 months. And considering the weather, we'd like to get started as soon as possible while we can do the work while the nights are still hot and before the rainy season. In terms of operational impacts, construction of the project will require nightly closures of Taxiway Alpha. These nightly closures will be limited to the time between 10:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. to minimize impacts on the commercial air carriers. a taxiing from the terminal. It will be reopened for use each morning. And to demonstrate the importance of that reopening and to mitigate the risk, there are significant liquidated damages assessed in terms of minutes for delay if the taxiway is unable to open at 6:30 a.m. On the screen, you can see a budget breakdown demonstrating the total project cost of $2,724,955. The almost $300,000 associated with project design was approved by the Commission at an earlier meeting this year, back in February, but is included in the project total submitted to the FAA in our revised AIP application, as it will be reimbursed as project formulation costs. The fiscal year 2020 budget includes appropriations for this project in the amount of $2,250,000. The bids came in 12 to 80% higher than the engineer's estimate. But the updated cost was revised in the updated AIP application, and as such, there will be no impact to the airport's budget. The FAA via AIP grants funds 80.59% of the total project, and the remaining 19.5% will be reimbursed via a PFC application that is still under development. So with that, staff seeks a committee recommendation to the, staff seeks a commission approval to award a construction contract in the amount of $2,099,920 to Sully Miller, award the PSA agreement to RDM in the amount of $108,725, approve a project budget for construction management in the amount of $75,000, and a project contingency in the amount of $150,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I have a quick question. So none of the other four contractors that submitted their proposals had any percentage of DBEs?
No, they did. I just didn't list them because we weren't recommending them for award. One of the other 5 firms indicated a commitment of 27.2% above the goal. The other 3 did not achieve the 24% goal, but demonstrated with a good faith effort adequate documentation to satisfy the requirement.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Move the item.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Thank you.
The next item for the Commission's consideration is an award of contract for janitorial services. Again, Mr. DeFrenzo will be making the presentation.
Staff comes today seeking Commission approval for the award of a janitorial services agreement to United Maintenance Company, Inc. for a 3-year period at a fixed price of $4,248,390, excluding supplies. The proposed agreement also includes 2 one-year extension options with fixed annual costs of $1,498,765 and $1,529,959 respectively. Supplies to be provided are to be billed monthly on an actual cost basis. Based on current activity levels, we estimate those supplies to run around $18,000 a month. On July 3rd, the existing janitorial services provider and one of the shortlisted firms under consideration submitted a protest letter protesting staff's recommendation to award to United Maintenance. The protest letter was attached, and United Maintenance's response to that protest letter is also attached. United Maintenance is here to answer any specific questions about their response to the protest letter, if any exist. So a little background on janitorial services. In April 2014, the Commission awarded the existing janitorial services agreement to DFS with an initial term of 3 years with 2 one-year extension options, both of which were exercised by the Commission. In February of this year, an RFP was posted and received 9 responses from interested firms. Based on an initial review by our procurement department, 2 of the proposals were deemed non-responsive and thus were not evaluated further. The remaining 7 proposals were evaluated by a panel composed of 5 staff members. Based on the evaluation of the written proposals, 4 firms were shortlisted to advance to the interview phase of the procurement process. Based on the resulting scores of the combined proposal review and interview, on May 6th of this year, staff sought the Operations and Development Committee's recommendation for a contract award to DFS, our current janitorial services provider. At that meeting, the committee asked staff to clarify the evaluation and selection process, as well as to address in more detail the significant discrepancies in the proposed monthly hours and fee from the 3 shortlisted firms. To address those concerns and questions raised during the committee meeting, staff utilized a best and final offer process by which the 4 shortlisted firms were invited to submit revised offers based on a format that we thought would address specifically the committee's concern. Recognizing that the extended procurement process would extend beyond the expiration of DFS's existing janitorial services contract, which expired May 31st of 2019. On May 20th of 2019, staff presented to the commission, which was approved, a 3-month extension. So the current agreement with DFS is set to expire August 31st of this year. The current scope of janitorial services includes cleaning all publicly accessible areas of the airport terminal, restrooms, hallways, hold rooms, curb front, etc. Bag claim areas and exterior curb front, nursing stations, pet relief areas, authority offices, and some of the remote facilities, the operations facility in Building 36 and the maintenance building. The scope of the proposed janitorial services moving forward is the same, but due to a marked increase in passenger volume at the airport since the initial staffing was established back in 2014, the frequencies required, the minimum frequencies required for cleaning were increased in some of the critical areas like restrooms. Providing a clean facility is critical for the airport, as passenger impressions of the overall facility are often most impacted by the perception of the airport's cleanliness, especially in the restrooms. With an increase in flights that the airport has experienced since 2014, when the initial contract was established, the associated increase in passenger activities has significantly impacted restroom cleaning and supply usage. Restrooms are now required to be cleaned significantly more frequently than they were when the initial staffing levels were established. As a result, staff made its original recommendation based on an understanding that a significant increase in staff over what's currently provided was warranted. Approximate 37% increase in passenger volume warrants the additional cleaning staff. However, based on the magnitude of the increase in the proposed fee, the significant differences between hours and fee amongst the shortlisted firm, and the structure by which we requested the fees be submitted, the committee requested that we undertake a best and final offer process to clarify some of those concerns. The 4 shortlisted firms were sent a letter inviting them to submit a best and final offer in a revised format that weighted proposed staffing at 40 points, meaning more staff, more points, proposed price at 40 points, lower price, more points, and response to supplemental written questions that we gave them associated with their transition plan and transition schedule and their proposed site manager. Evaluations of those submitted BAFOs resulted in staff announcing on June 6th the plan to recommend a contract to United Maintenance at the June 17, 2019 meeting. Subsequent to that public announcement, on June 11th, DFS submitted a letter protesting the contract award, outlining concerns specifically associated with staff's response to questions associated with the existing unionization status of employees. Based on the protest letter, we pulled from the agenda the recommendation to award to United Maintenance and sent a letter to the 4 firms who had participated in the BAFO process clarifying one of those responses. I'll read a short excerpt from that letter. It has been brought to our attention that one or more of the best and final offer submittals for the above referenced procurement may have been based on a misunderstanding regarding the status of an organized labor union of the existing janitorial staff employed by the current service provider. Existing janitorial personnel are members of the Service Employees International Union United Service Workers West and are covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Those 4 shortlisted firms who had participated in the initial BAFO process were then invited to consider the information and either confirm their pricing or revise their pricing. 2 of the 4 firms, DFS and Pride, confirmed their pricing, while 2 updated their pricing, Uniserv and United Maintenance. Using the same selection criteria that was described in the BAFO process, the points are totaled, resulting in United Maintenance being the highest scoring proposal and thus our recommendation for award. I know that was a long explanation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have several questions. I guess first and foremost, it sounds like there's a piece missing when you said that the contractors were offered the opportunity to update their pricing based on the organized status of the workforce. What's based on a requirement that they move all those employees into the new contractor, right?
There's the Displaced Janitors Act in California obligates any new service provider to offer employment to existing janitorial workers for a period of 60 days, but it doesn't obligate them to maintain maintain wage rates or benefit structure.
Okay, so over one point, we would basically throw all of our current employees to the wolves.
Well, we didn't make the union status a selection criteria or an evaluation process, but my understanding is that United Maintenance does intend on negotiating with the SEIU, and I'm happy to invite him
But
up.
that's just an agreement to agree, which is completely unenforceable.
That's true.
But am I correct that the difference between United Maintenance and DFS is 1 point?
You are correct.
So over
yes.
1 point, we're taking the risk that our entire labor force in this area at least won't be protected by collective bargaining.
Correct.
Yeah, that's unacceptable to me. Also, the staffing increase numbers confused me. It sounded
Okay.
like we're projecting a 37% need for increased in service.
Not exactly. In 2014, the initial staffing levels were established when the existing agreement with with DFS was established. They're about 4,040 hours per month provided by DFS under their existing agreement. Those hours have changed a little bit, but not very significantly, about 50 hours over the last 5 years. But over that same period, 37% passenger volume has increased, and our supply usage has gone from around 10,000 a month to around 18,000 a month. So staff recognizes that to maintain, this is not projected, these are actuals, that to maintain this level, the level of cleanliness requires more bodies to clean the restrooms, restock the restrooms, etc. Initially, DFS proposed an increase of around 20%, and United Maintenance proposed an increase of around 8% in staffing levels on a monthly basis. Based on us revising the selection criteria to demonstrate an emphasis on staffing, United Maintenance increased their staffing over the current 4,040 to over 20%, and DFS maintained their proposed 20% increase. So now United Maintenance and DFS are both proposing similar levels of monthly staffing, or hours per month rather, staffing, and so the discrepancy is in the dollars.
And I guess it's not clear to me why that second bite at the apple was afforded.
The best and final offer?
Yes, sir.
Essentially because the questions raised during the Operations and Development Committee called into question, I think, three things. One, we didn't explicitly in our selection or evaluation criteria indicate that we expected more staff. We demonstrated the increase in passenger volumes and relied on the firms to propose staffing that they thought was appropriate. But the consequence was only the incumbent proposed levels that we thought were reasonable. It resulted in their price per month, or I guess their total price, being about 40% higher than the other three shortlisted firms. And so the committee, I think, appropriately pointed out that the discrepancy, three firms committing to do it for around 100,000 and one committing to do it for 140,000, our recommendation, needed more investigation, a more detailed look. And so that was the result of the BAFO.
Well, that sounds suspect to me. I mean, I can see the basis for a protest there. I guess where I come out, and we probably have other members that want to speak, and probably some cards on this too, but over the 1 point differential with this kind of record that frankly is a mess, and the inherent risk of switching contractors, I think we should stick with DFS, especially given the protections that are afforded to the laborers.
I'd like to introduce John Cheshill from United Maintenance. He has an update on their negotiations.
Well,
with the
that's
SEIU.
fine as long as we give the other bidders an opportunity to speak as well.
I believe DFS is here, and I don't know if they intended to give comment, but.
Okay, what's your meeting, Mr. President?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I have no problem. Okay.
We just signed an agreement with SEIU. I just got the text. I'd be happy to share it with you. We do business across the country with SEIU, and it was just a matter of language. Our proposal increases this current staff size, so we're not reducing staff. It matches and increases the wages over a 5-year period. The difficulty was in the language and verbiage as to other work that we have in the area falling under a certain set agreement, as opposed to being site-specific. But the attorneys, after working all weekend, will send me a huge bill, I'm sure. But we've come to terms, and I have a copy of the document.
So you wouldn't have a problem if we made our approval subject to the requirement that you have a binding agreement with SEIU?
This is correct.
Great.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, sir, very much.
I would just comment that the Operations Committee recommended this. It appears, I understand Commissioner Madison's concern. The point scoring is a little bit more nuanced than that. United Maintenance was the top scorer in terms of the staffing and the price. The reason it got close is because of the written response scoring category, which we deemed to be a little less significant. That's why it came to be within a point. But on the pricing, over the term of the agreement, there's an almost $800,000 differential between United and DFS. And the wages, has now been confirmed in terms of the contract, but the wages scheduled in their proposal exceed the union site agreement. So it wasn't a matter of disadvantage. I mean, we have the same concerns. In addition to having the obligation to rehire all of the workers for a minimum 60-day period and then give them an opportunity to continue their employment, their wage structure exceeded the existing SEIU agreement. So that the reason we go through this elaborate process is to be sure that we get the best available service. And United, in terms of the number of monthly hours that they were projecting, which also exceeded DFS, has a superior proposal. And so I do agree with my colleague that the process was a little bit of a mess, but the committee was dissatisfied with the initial result because we didn't think that everybody had been told exactly what the expectations were. And we do put a tremendous premium on making sure that the terminal is user-friendly and absolutely clean. So I think Councilmember Madison's justifiable objections and concerns about fair treatment for our workers has been satisfied with the current arrangement.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
We have one public comment, I believe.
Yes, we do. We have Ada Camacho. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, good morning, commissioners. My name is Ada Camacho, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the cleaners here at Burbank Airport. They're represented by SEIU USWW. So in your meeting this morning, you're discussing moving the work of dozens of hardworking members of SEIU USWW at Hollywood Burbank Airport to a new janitorial contractor, United Maintenance Company. SEIU USWW and United Maintenance are working hard to reach an agreement on a statement of principles to protect our members' jobs, to guarantee their health care, and to allow them to keep their union. And both parties are committed to keep these workers whole. I'd like to also confirm that as of 8:49 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I've been informed that we have reached a signed agreement on a statement of principles. However, our ability to protect these workers and their families and their benefits will rely almost entirely on the airport authority's willingness to work with us to make the appropriate adjustments to this bid. It is our understanding that the airport did not notify United Maintenance during the bid process that these workers are covered by a collective bargaining agreement. And this agreement that provides both fully employer-paid health benefits and vacations and other paid time off benefits. So workers like Maria Cordero, right, who's here, a 15-year-old employee at Hollywood Burbank Airport, you know, just to translate briefly, for her, you know, her union's very important to her and to her coworkers, and they need to maintain their health care, seniority, and respect in their workplace. Just to translate, our work is physically demanding, and it causes myself and many of my coworkers to deal with a lot of pain. In addition, many of us are diabetic or we struggle with high blood pressure. And if we lose our health care, it would have a big impact on our lives and the lives of our families. I personally just had surgery on my knee, and as we speak, I'm receiving therapy for pain in my back, my waist, my neck, and my feet. I need health care coverage to not only continue working here, but also to be able to do simple things in my regular routine of life. So, thank you. SEIU, USWW, and Burbank Airport janitors urge the Burbank-Glendale-Pasadena Airport Authority to work with us to ensure that not one of the janitors who have worked so hard for so many years to keep this airport clean and safe has to face the possibility of losing their jobs, their health care, or their union as a result of the airport's bid process. Please, we ask that you stand with us and do the right thing for your janitors. I'd like to leave this behind on our behalf. Just want to also just clarify that you'll see that the letter states when it was written, which was yesterday, that document states we were in the process of bargaining an agreement on the statement of our principles. So I just want to clarify that as of this morning at 8:49 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have reached a signed agreement on our statement of principles.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Appreciate it. You want a question?
Yes, I have a question. So are you pleased with the terms of the agreement that you reached this morning?
So
Because I don't know what the terms are in this agreement, and I don't know if it's in our jurisdiction to review those, but are you pleased compared to what you had before?
So
with the other company.
It is
which
significant progress
DFS.
in the direction, in the right direction on behalf of United Maintenance. Nonetheless, when United Maintenance submitted their bid, it was based on them believing there was no collective bargaining agreement. And so the issue here is really dependent on, the airport authority's ability to take this in mind about the benefits. And so we believe that United Maintenance is working in good faith with SEIU USWW to ensure that members are kept whole, that no one loses their job or anything, and we have their commitment. Again, this really almost entirely depends on the airport authority's decision around making sure that there's benefits included in this contract.
Thank you.
Let me go to
Thank you.
to John.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is our role between
We defer to
our
the,
contractor and their employees and
the authority does not normally insert itself into the process.
Right.
We make sure that they are aware of the situation, what the people have, and I think United Maintenance has addressed all of that and has entered into agreement of principle, recognizing what the employees here have, and that they are required under state law to offer them a position for at least 60 days. And so if the gentleman from United Maintenance would like to confirm that, they have state laws and they have their own obligation as a company working here to recognize employees here as well.
But what happens after 60 days if they come back and say, look, our proposal was based on no contract, bargaining contract, and then now we have to insert that in our.
My understanding was that's part of the reason why you did it. You had your baffle process go out twice. They did adjust their price under what they understood the terms to be.
Can we call the gentleman back one more time, please? From United Maintenance.
Sure.
So the question is, they do have a contract currently with DFS, which is our current contractor, and you know what the terms of those the contract is?
Yes, we
And-
received it. It was dated a couple days after the proposals were due. That's why we adjusted our cost in the second
Right,
BF.
so you're going to offer the same
To the
terms
existing-
and benefits that they have currently to.
We are working together with them.
employees.
We've exceeded the wages, and we've included all the sick day pay, I believe 8 or 9 days, and the holidays. And we honored the seniority. We also budgeted in the differential for senior members. So we have that covered.
Just because, just to add what Commissioner Madison was mentioning, for one point going through this whole process and then 6 months later, we have our employees coming back or people who served this authority and this airport for 15 years, we don't want them to come back and say, look, they're not, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
We're on the same page, and the existing agreement actually expires later this year, the beginning of the year, with DFS. So we're looking forward to working with SEIU, as we do across the country, coming up with a unique package which will benefit not only the airport, but the
All right.
employees as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Lunch?
So I would move the item. Councilmember Madison, do you have an amendment that you wanted to?
Yeah, if appropriate, can we just make the motion subject to the factual basis that was provided today, that they have entered into an agreement with the existed collective bargaining group?
Staff will reconfirm that and get a copy.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those, any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay. We're on item 8.
Item 8 is community noise concerns. We have a number of speakers that would like to comment on this item. Before we do that, Patrick Lammerdink has a report for the commission.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. like to provide you with an update on our progress towards a joint task force on airport noise.
Speak up, please.
Resolution.
Mic, please.
Resolution 483 of the authority was delivered via FedEx to Acting FAA Administrator Elwell on June 28th with copies to members of Congress, the mayors of Burbank-Glendale-Pasadena, as well as to other officials in the FAA, both in Washington and here locally. Work continues with the formation of the Joint Task Force to address noise issues in the LA Basin. Los Angeles World Airport staff is working jointly with Hollywood Burbank Airport staff with the formation of the task force. Bylaws have been drafted by the Hollywood Burbank Airport staff and are being reviewed by Los Angeles World Airport staff. And discussions with the FAA are also ongoing as we develop the task force to ensure that the FAA can participate as a non-voting member and as a technical advisor. The task force will consist of voting members of the the voting members of the task force will be from elected officials' offices, either the elected officials themselves or their designated senior level staff members. The invitation letters, as you heard earlier, were sent on Friday, this past Friday, July 12th. The format and structure of the task force complies with FAA guidelines. This ensures their participation in a useful final product. The membership complies with the FAA guidelines by ensuring balanced representation of all the communities. The task force will be led by an independent facilitator, which we are procuring at the moment. This facilitator has experience with noise issues, other roundtables and task forces that are conducted at other airports. This facilitator will also provide an independent analysis in both a preemptive and an ongoing way throughout this process. The first task force meeting is targeted for September. 6 meetings are planned on a monthly basis. FAA and other non-voting participants will be present to make technical presentations and also just be in attendance. And the public will have an opportunity to provide comments and participate in those meetings. The final product is planned to be a set of recommendations that have been approved by the voting members of the Joint Task Force. These recommendations may take the form of mitigations to existing procedures and practices. They may also be comments on proposed procedural amendments to flight procedures. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Are there any questions or comments?
I have a question.
We have a question.
Yeah. Is there going to be representation from the public or from any of the organizations that have come to the authority?
I want to make sure everybody can hear me. The voting members will be the offices of the elected officials.
What community?
From,
What community?
from
Okay.
What elected
From-
official? But what
Yeah.
city?
Please, please, would you keep your comments down? Thank you.
and
I think that's a valid question to ask.
yes, I do. Well, is right. And what will the representation be? From what offices and what cities and areas?
The joint task force invitation letters were sent to the Los Angeles City Council offices of Council Districts 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Which is?
The Burbank City Council, Glendale City Council, Pasadena City Council, the congressional representatives of Congressman Schiff, Sherman, Cardenas, and Senators Feinstein and Harris's offices.
So should we then assume
I
that-
think we're confusing the audience by not giving them a straight answer of what's going to happen.
What about the communities?
Can you give us the names of the cities, communities that are involved? Is it Sherman Oaks? Will it be Toluca Lake? Will it be Studio City, et cetera? Because I'm not privy to areas 2, 4, 5, 6. Who those are.
I can name the council members if you'd like. It'd be council members Martinez, Koretz, Krikorian, and Root.
From where?
They represent multiple areas, so it's hard to tell you every single area they represent. They're very large.
May I ask a question?
You ask.
Do any of these four,
Pretty narrow, we know which communities.
do any of these four council members that you mentioned represent Sherman Oaks, Studio City, Toluca Lake?
Yes, they do,
They-
as well as the
There's
congressional
the
offices.
answers. Your elected council members are representing you on this board.
As well as the federal level.
Okay.
So those communities are basically included in this board, they have representatives on this board.
That's correct.
Which is those four council districts.
I mean, which communities are you, yeah, the communities that were mentioned earlier, yes.
Right,
Yes.
Sherman Oaks, Studio City,
Yes.
Toluca Lake.
So it's, if I may.
Can you tell us how the process works one more time for the public to understand? How is it formed? Who has the voting power, the voting members?
So the joint task force would consist of voting members from those offices I just named.
So that includes the four council districts that represent Toluca Lake, Sherman Oaks, and Studio City.
Correct, as well as the congressional offices that represent those same areas. And those are all voting members of the task force. And what they're voting on are recommendations that would end up in a final deliverable that would then be sent to the responsible entities who would carry out those proposed mitigations and comments to proposed procedures.
And they all have equal voting rights.
Correct.
They all have one vote each person, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Another question. Who's involved in those final deliverables? I mean, is that the community that's involved in kind of coming up with the final delivery?
The joint task force would form that final deliverable.
So-
The facilitator analyst would compile it and actually create the report, create the deliverable for the joint task force. But it's those voting members who would actually arrive at the final set of recommendations.
Okay, so, but the members are the representatives of the elected officials. Is that correct?
The voting members
The
are.
vote, who are the people that are coming up with these suggestions? Is it the task force? Or are there other members of the task force besides the voting members? I
There
find
are
this a little bit
non-voting members,
confusing.
such as the Federal Aviation Administration and the airport, and there is public participation involved in terms of public comment. Now, in terms of how they come about to those recommendations, that's something that the experienced facilitator will walk the joint task force through in the process, but it has to be those elected officials who are the voting members who actually select those recommendations.
Well,
Okay. Did you have something, Mr. Selvage?
Right, I have two questions. One's kind of short and might require our council to answer. Is this going to be a Brown Act covered body?
At this point, we don't have a quorum from any particular entity, so it would not. But we would follow the same procedures.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's the composition and what it's coming up with in the way of a work product, a report. So I think I'd like our council to inform the commission whether or not this would be a Brown Act body. The second question is whether, or to whom do we expect this report is going to be delivered? Is it the FAA? That's my expectation.
I'll answer the second one first, and then our council will come up. So as far as who we send that final report to, there may be different responsible entities. So if it's something that is flight procedures based, we would expect the FAA, and this is why we need them in attendance throughout, to take those recommendations and evaluate those and provide a response. If there were recommendations for the airlines or the airport or whoever else, it would be their responsibility to review and respond to those.
Okay, thank you.
So it's not one entity.
Just one moment.
And if I may, Commissioners, yes, the way the task force is now being considered to be set up would be a Brown Act body.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I had similar questions. It sounds like one has been answered. These will be public meetings, obviously.
Correct.
And is this the so-called roundtable that we had previously talked about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. because that's a little confusing to now call it a task force. We just want to make sure everybody's aware.
And if I may, the reason, the difference between calling it the Roundtable and Task Force is just so it's very clear to those, because of the way roundtables have been formed and conducted in the past, they're much more broad. We want this to be very focused on these specific issues that you're hearing a lot about.
And apropos of that comment, my belief is that flight traffic from Van Nuys and LAX is also contributing to these problems. Will those be?
Burbank Airport. It's Burbank Airport.
Reasonable minds could differ, but I want to make sure that the members of the roundtable have the ability to pull in information and responses. This won't work.
Please.
This won't work if we won't let each other speak.
Can we extend the man a courtesy, please? Thank
I just
you.
want to make sure that we'll have resources available to pull in information and responses as necessary from you.
Yes, sir, and that's the reason for making it a joint task force with LAWA and having the facilitator not just look at this airport, but the entire airspace in the area.
And then my last question is, and maybe the facilitator is in part the answer to this, but who will staff the work of this group?
In terms of like an administrative function, it'd be the facilitator.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Okay. Any more? Moving back to, pardon? We have a comment?
Yes, we do.
Oh, we're back to public comment.
We have 32 speakers.
32 speakers. Okay, and they're limited to 3 minutes a person.
1 or 2 minutes?
Pardon?
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay.
The first speaker is Steve Hamper.
And it's 2 minutes? Okay.
You have 2 minutes.
You have 2 minutes.
My name is Steve Hampar. I'm president of the Toluca Lake Homeowners Association. We represent about 400 members and 9,000 residents, and we are to the south of the Burbank Airport, and we border Studio City to the east. And so we're quite a bit smaller than Studio City, but we're also profoundly affected by the airplane noise from the new flight paths from the Burbank Airport. They're lower flying at times throughout the day and evening. We're bombarded by these flights every minute, every few minutes at times. And we're unable to enjoy the quiet enjoyment of our properties, not only in our yards or neighborhood, inside the homes, even with televisions on, it's loud. And I've heard from many of our members, and similarly to Studio City, we are profoundly affected.
You have 1 minute.
It's a new phenomenon. I've been there 25 years. This hasn't happened in the past. And so also want to say many of us love the Burbank Airport for its convenience. It's a great airport, but we should be able to enjoy the airport without the noise. So I would strongly urge the FAA to return back to the original flight paths, or at least work with us on a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lynn Rimbert, and then Sue Ellen Wagner.
Hi, I'm Lynn Rembert. I belong to the Toluca Lake Homeowners Association, and I've just noticed over the past month that when the planes take off, they hit Toluca Lake, Studio City, Sherman Oaks, and they've been turning sooner, so we get less noise, and I want to thank you for that. In 2015, this board was aware of the next gen plans and how it was going to have more noise in the neighborhood. Our quality of life has been negatively impacted by the continuous flight noise as late as 11:28 at night or 4:28 in the morning. This board is supposed to act in the best interests of our communities. Please, let us know when you start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Ellen Wagner and Kimberly Turner.
Good morning. Intimidating. Hi, I'm Kimberly Turner, and this is Sue Ellen Wagner. We're from Studio City for Quiet Skies. First of all, I'd like to thank Congressman Rue for being here, and also want to acknowledge that John Brodkey of Congressman Sherman's office is also here, so thank you very much. I'd like to just start right in and say that we have requested a meeting with you guys immediately after the last meeting on June 17th. And after several subsequent emails and phone calls, we're told that you might be able to meet with us at the end of July, but not sooner. That you couldn't even spend 1 hour to discuss our crisis in our communities brought about by next-gen implementation, as well as to develop strategies to return to the pre-next-gen historic departure path now. We must have a dialogue. We want to help you improve your communications with the FAA, who have reportedly found your letters and requests to be vague and muddled. We have given you specific requests time and time again and ask that you follow through. In fact, we had—
You have 1 minute.
We had suggested revisions to your resolutions that you ignored. I'm just going to move forward. We are approaching LA City Council and the Mayor's office to support your resolution to the FAA at the same time, recommending that they include the revisions that we initially proposed to your resolution. When LAWA brought the Van Nuys issue to the FAA, and they received a quick response that the Section 175 did not apply, LAWA requested that the FAA find other solutions. You need to also find other solutions. We request that the airport submit a more specific late comment to the FAA regarding the proposed procedures, insisting that the waypoints move 1 mile north of the existing proposed waypoints with dispersion north, so that no single community will suffer all of the impacts as ours has for the last 2.5 years. This may be the most expedient resolution to our crisis and could in fact be implemented by vector now.
Thank you.
Using existing procedures.
This would speed relief and provide a framework for permanent solutions. We would like to provide details regarding the proposal, and you will hear more specifics about this plan by another speaker. We have been advised that FAA will be coming to Burbank and have also invited our elected officials to present a briefing regarding their position and analysis of Burbank Airport's departure path. We are asking that you supply information to us as you receive it from the FAA. We need to bring transparency to this issue. We will be providing a list of questions for you and to our elected representatives to ask to the FAA at this briefing. At the same time, we would like to invite Raquel Gervin to accompany us on a tour of the affected areas in Studio City, Sherman Oaks, and other communities. Regarding the task force, the proposal is inadequate and incredibly disappointing. You have decided to exclude the experts, the community leaders who have led the fight against the new departure path.
You have 1 minute.
Everyone has had an expectation of community presence at the roundtable/task force. A few questions for you. First of all, I forgot to say, as Councilman Krikorian stated, get up and out of the valley. That is your directive. Did you send your resolution to the FAA? And I would hope that you would answer these questions after we have public comment. Did you send the resolution to the FAA? Did they respond? Have you made progress with Southwest? Have you talked to them about what they're loading into their flight management system, which results in precision repetition of flight path over certain communities and homes? Did you ever submit comments to the proposed Van Nuys procedures? The comment period is now closed. What is SLAP 3? What have you learned about the EA? We want it now.
Thank you. Next, we have Mitch Suskin.
We should be able to answer those questions. I know that we did send the resolution to the FAA.
It was sent over Federal Express overnight and was received by the FAA office.
Other than agreeing to the roundtable, have they responded?
They have not from Washington, but we have heard from the regional administrator's office, and she has scheduled a briefing on July 30th. I think that was being referred to.
Okay. I know the speaker, one of the speakers mentioned Van Nuys, and, you know, I wasn't wrong. There have been a spike in noise complaints coming from Van Nuys from some of these communities. No, they're from Van Nuys as well.
Yes.
So that's, I think, the importance of making sure we have a regional solution. Thank you.
Next, we have Mitch Suskin, and then Jane Go. Are they here?
They here?
Jane Go? No.
Who's next?
I was at the last meeting, what was it, a month and a half ago or something, and I was hugely encouraged to hear that some of you had actually gone into the communities on your own and sat in areas and listened. It all seemed so sympathetic and positive. And then we get this video that shows back in 2015 that pretty much the same members getting input from your environmental officer about what an enormous effect this would have. And everybody kind of wanted to push it down the road. So the problem with that is that it was really wonderful to be part of this labor issue. And your comment about not throwing your employees to the wolves. So all of these things on the one hand make us feel like you really are responsive. And then on the other hand, we have this history that has just shattered our sense of trust. So it's quite difficult to pull back from a rift that great. I do hope that it's hard to know whether I'm being naive to expect that your seeming response to us is genuine or whether it's just papering over.
You have
so
1
I
minute.
hope you realize that now is the moment to really show how forceful, if you feel that way genuinely, you are about this. It has just shattered our lives. My brother, who has the temperament of a Marlboro man, he follows his cattle ranching Wyoming uncle in that. He never has a complaint about anything. He came to visit me the other day from his way out back of San Diego, and after spending 5 days with me, at the end of the visit, he turned and said, to my shock, "You know, that really is pretty annoying." Well, from anybody else, it would be, "Oh, dear Mary, Mother of God." But from him, it really is tremendous for us. So
Thank you.
Please show us whether we can trust you or not.
Carol Sidham.
Can I give my time to her? I'll give my time to anyone else who wants to.
Michelle Florman.
James. You say James?
No, I said Michelle Florman. And then Stacy Slickta.
Hello. Burbank commissioners were fully aware of devastating changes being proposed by FAA rerouting of flight paths over our San Fernando Valley communities in a narrow fixed corridor since at least 2015. Studio City and Sherman Oaks residents were never directly under a flight path throughout the history of the airport, and now we are under a flight corridor. The commissioners did nothing when warned of the increased impact on San Fernando Valley neighborhoods now directly under a flight corridor. Of course, the migration directly benefited Burbank commissioners, the Bob Hope Airport, and the cities of Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena. Shifting the abominable noise and air pollution to communities in the San Fernando Valley while elevating the quality of life in your communities and enriching the cities and airport coffers at our expense. The FAA and Burbank have devastated our neighborhoods, causing emotional and physical ailments, which they were well aware would occur. Driving through Burbank, I noticed how strangely quiet the city is.
You have 1 minute.
Burbank retains all the fees earned while dumping deliberately on the San Fernando Valley neighborhoods. NextGen has greatly benefited Burbank residents, the airlines, the commissioners who don't have to reside under the flight corridor, conflict of interest. Commissioners deliberately prolonged the response to the public outcry in order to continue receiving additional revenues for the city of Burbank. The commission was in no rush and took no responsibility in mitigating the damage the flight corridor had created. It's all about money. The Burbank Airport Commission could have written a letter to the FAA back in 2015, but decided not to act. It wasn't in their best interest. If Burbank cared about the climate change, the airport would drastically reduce the number of daily flights, thus reducing the greenhouse emissions, helping to preserve not only LA, but the Earth. Stop
Thank you.
expansion of gates and reduce number of flights now. Airports are the largest contributor of greenhouse gases, accelerating climate change.
Stacy Slichta.
Ask a quick question, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
John, Mr. Atanaka, how much money does City of Glendale get from Burbank Airport?
You don't get any money from the airport.
Thank you.
How many flights do you have over Glendale? How many flight quarters?
No, I understand everybody's frustrated and rightfully so, but let's not make accusations that it's not true. You're here to find the truth, but the City of Glendale, I don't know about Pasadena, but the City of Glendale does not have any financial interest of from Burbank Airport, and the reason that we are here because this is a joint power agreement between the three cities. Now, I'm going to stop that.
Thank you.
Share the flights.
Stacy Slichta.
Next.
You have 2 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I'm sure you enjoyed the video that we sent out, and there'll be more, so I look forward to that. There's one more picture. Oh, it is? Okay, great. This is the plan that the Studio City for Quiet Skies had mentioned in their 2-minute quick speech. The FAA has told officials that the 175 dispersion request made from Burbank and the recent solution was too vague and therefore wasn't useful. So behind me you can see our Burbank solution. The web track depictions show that all of the airplanes coming out of Burbank can take a turn well north of the 101. It also shows that the path can be dispersed much further north over the 101. And everyone, including Burbank, the commissioners, the mayors of Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena, have asked for a quick rate of ascent to get up and out of the valley. And this is completely workable as depicted by these. No one living under the current path disseminated from our community should accept anything less than this solution. Jets should not be flying over the Santa Monica Mountains. Jets should not be flying down Ventura or Moore Park either. Planes have flown well north of the 101 in the past and the present.
You have 1 minute.
100% of them should be done this way, immediately and now. If the FAA or any official or any community group wants to sell you a different story, don't buy it. You know better. These are dishonest brokers. There's no regulation that would keep the jets flying from well north of the 101. Again, you can see it with your own eyes. Upper LA is fighting with our community to get the absolute best result for our communities. We don't believe you should trust the FAA or anyone else that wants you to settle for something that will still devastate our communities. The solution is legal and possible, and it can be dispersed so no one under the community suffers. And it can have a very quick rate of ascent out of the valley. The FAA and Burbank have caused this disaster, and it is their power to fix it. Give this specific implementable solution to the FAA today. LAWA did the same thing at Van Nuys and is now officially in the process of a meaningful correction.
Thank you.
There is no reason the same can't happen for Burbank and all of us suffering right now. Our supporters need to push the FAA, federal and local governments to demand for a solution as well. And I have a quick question for you. What have you done about the environmental assessment? It's been very long and should have been completed. It is our firm belief that the FAA is using both the EA and the task force, which we spoke about earlier in your meeting, as a delay tactic to relieve any of this noise from our communities. Again, this is completely unacceptable. Hi, Steve, I'm over here. With the clear understanding that this is our expectations and that the FAA address this immediate crisis at hand now that you're all fully aware of and have been aware of for 4 years. I look forward to maybe speaking with one of you or 2 of you or 3 of you in the near future so that I don't have to waste my time sending out videos and wasting time and money of our communities to send out videos to expose you and you're flip-flopping. Just own up. big boy pants on. I don't want to call you liar, liar, pants on fire. I want you to work with us, okay?
Thank you.
If you lie, you're going to get caught. We can accept some things, but other things we cannot. Please work with us.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
solution.
Thank you.
Jeannie Love.
Commissioner Southern, please.
Jeannie Love.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
And I'd like to make an observation, since it's been established that the task force would be covered under the Brown Act, the open meeting law for the state of California, that presentations such as this one could be made at every single one of those meetings. And when individual items relating to these are discussed by the task force. So the people who have come and talked to us and explained to us what their views are on what's happened, why it's happened, what a solution would be, will legally have the right to make presentations like this to the task force.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Why are we waiting for the task force, though? I mean, it's been 4 years that you guys knew about it. Does any of you live, I would love to know, in Studio City, Toluca Lake, Sherman Oaks? Anybody here? Where do you live?
Toluca Lake.
Is it affected? You are affected. There's more flights than lower, correct? Correct. Sir, you spoke, what is your name? Can I ask you a question? Why? Can you ask questions or not?
Hey, ma'am,
Yes.
address your subject. You cannot have a debate with everybody.
I'm asking, can I ask a question? Yes or no? Who does he work for? Who does this gentleman who created or works for the task force, is it you guys? Who do you work for? Because you're not working with us.
And the answer is?
She's got to give.
You have 1 minute.
Would you address that question, sir?
I'm sorry, I was helping Commissioner Brown. What's the question, sir? We work for the commission, if that's the question. We work for
Who
the
is
authority.
the commission? Is it Burbank Airport or,
The gentleman here, we work for the Burbank-Glendale-Pasadena Airport Authority.
and you get paid by the Burbank Airport, correct?
We are in contract. We are under contract to the authority. Yes.
Okay. So if you were getting paid by the Burbank Airport, you guys all knew about this in 2015. We've had this conversation for 2 years and you have not done anything. Van Nuys, they made a quick decision. How come you guys aren't strong enough? I guess you don't live under the flight path. Please, sir, help us do exactly what they did in Van Nuys and make it move quicker. We don't need another round table for you to just sit there and go, oh yeah, there's a problem. We are environmentally getting destroyed. If your pool has black oil on it, there's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Carlos and Rosalind Dahl.
Hi, I'm Lisa Carlos with Uproar LA, and I just wanted to emphasize the point that a couple of other speakers have made, which is this roundtable / task force. Not one single impacted resident or community group is actually included in it. The elected representatives might be, but none of the people. And I mean, Sue Ellen, Kim Turner, Kim Biddle, Stacy Slipta know more about what's going on and how to fix it than anybody that will be sitting at that table. And we were promised that we would have a seat at this table originally. So for it to start 6 weeks from now and then have one meeting a month you're pushing the problem out. It's a delay tactic. To not even to come up with a possible solution in 7.5 months' time, that's not working for anybody in this room. So let us save you a lot of time and a lot of money on this roundtable. I think you've seen our video by now.
You have 1 minute.
You moved a path over a mountain. The topography causes the noise to bounce around and echo not only over the hill, but all along the base of the mountain and the rising terrain, what we kind of call the flats, but it is rising terrain. The FAA, through NextGen, lowered the altitude of the jets significantly, so they're much louder on the ground. Burbank Airport continues to add more carriers, more flights every month, so of course, shockingly, there are a lot more airplanes. So to summarize, you moved a path over a mountain, you narrowed that path, you lowered the altitudes over tens of thousands of homes and schools. And then you continue to add more jets to your superhighway every month. So I just saved you a lot of time and money. Stop dragging it out. We don't need a roundtable. We don't need a task force. We need solutions, and we just presented them to you. So have a look at this.
Thank you.
Rosalind Dahl, and then John Gordon.
2 minutes. Well, that's long enough for me to have about 3 Boeing 737s fly at less than 250 feet distance from my home at 2,300 feet above my head in the hillsides of Sherman Oaks, increasing the decibels from 48 to 72. It's long enough to leave an open house, to stop a conversation, to interrupt a teacher's lesson, and to rush indoors. You knew about these routes back in 2015, but yet you did nothing. You say you monitor the noise per the 161 study and other regulatory requirements, but you don't even publish the actual number of flights in your reports. It's just scheduled. And when I had 13 flights in 1 hour the other day outside of work, trying to stay at home, I have to really query, what are the actual flights compared to your scheduled flights? You now send hundreds of daily aircraft over thousands of school children and residents who had no noise before. But you have no noise monitors in our areas. How do you know you're even complying with the regulatory requirements? You only report complaints that you respond to. We're going to hit 1 million complaints. 30,000 complaints that you respond to versus 110,000 in 30 days. No one can film in front of my house without putting a notice, but you can all of a sudden turn my life upside down and send hundreds of planes a day over it. Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You just don't get to make these decisions without someone paying for it. And I think we're all fed up. And we will audit and analyze and investigate whatever we need to do to make sure there's some equity put back into the situation. And if you think you can continue to send hundreds of aircraft, single file, daily, right over my home, which is exactly where it is, then maybe we can all file single line into a courtroom. It's time you fix this, give me some acoustical protection, stop your unauthorized navigational easement of my property now. Go back and get it fixed now.
Thank you.
John Gordon, and then David Kimball.
Let's once again emphasize how the sound of a giant jetliner overhead makes you feel. How it makes you feel. It's not an ordinary sound like a traffic sound. It's a ripping sound. It's a sky-tearing sound. It's an unfriendly and upsetting sound. It's not like something you can get used to. There's a giant aircraft just over your head filled with thousands of gallons of jet fuel. It takes about a minute for the sound to come and go. Make it a little louder so we can all enjoy what we always hear. It takes about a minute for this sound to come and go. So multiply that by 150 planes a day, and that's 2.5 hours of solid jet sound per day that we're enduring. Everything has to stop when we hear this sound.
You have 1
During
minute.
each minute of jet noise, like I said, everything has to stop. With all that traffic concentrated on this very narrow flight path, we're experiencing impact like no one in the valley has historically ever experienced. More flights over this crazy idea of putting them all on the same track, so we are bombarded every day with all of this sound, more than 2.5 solid hours, and you're increasing the number of planes. Imagine that this urban resource, Burbank Airport, was like an oil well, another urban resource. And its overflow was constantly spilling out and spoiling the surrounding streets, playgrounds, homes, and yards with oil. Well, that wouldn't last very long. Action would obviously be swift and decisive to stop all the oil, to remove the oil, and to take strong action with severe consequences against the polluter so this would not happen again.
Thank you.
Even if the polluters themselves live in far off and beautiful areas.
Thank you, sir.
David Kimball, and then Mary Kate Harris.
First of all, I can just say that there's some lying sacks of shit in this room. I'll leave it to you to decide who those are. We heard a lot about financials earlier on, sitting through them. Here are some interesting financials. Your line item for noise mitigation and abatement is interesting. It's set at $500,000 for 2020 and 2019, and you stated appropriations have been included to establish a forum for stakeholder involvement. Now that's funny because your budget for this was $1 million in 2018. So you decreased your money for noise issues by a half when your complaints increased and you knew the path was being narrowed. I have one word for you: selfish. Yes. Or is it stupid? Because you did this not thinking that somebody in the community would catch on. Right. It's something for you all to ponder.
Right.
Now this brings me to another jump in your budget. From 2016 to 2017, you jumped from $105,000 to $500,000. This was at the time the airport was struggling. Your flight increase was only in the single digits. Why would an airport that was struggling suddenly put $395,000 more into noise abatement and mitigation when they're having less flights? When they're finally recovering from the lawsuit from 2010 with the EPA? Did the commission know, maybe? Did they have a meeting in 2015 and know that the path was narrowing and they needed a cushion for it? Or did they just get a big AIG grant? So I leave you with some more great quotes. Frank Miller, liar-in-chief, who I notice is not here today, interesting. Frank Miller, we don't understand the direct cause. I knew nothing about the changes at the Van Nuys Airport in regards to any procedural changes. Mr. Tornek, in regards to writing a letter to the FAA about the paths in 2015. Maybe this is much ado about nothing.
Thank you.
And one last paraphrase from the great Samuel L. Jackson. I'm tired of these motherfucking airplanes flying over my motherfucking house.
Stop signing new contracts for more planes.
Okay, my turn.
Come.
Close them. You run the airport.
My turn. Thank you. I agree, but it's my turn. Some quick notes. I don't know your name, but it's lovely to see a woman on this commission. And I would like to thank you for, in this meeting and the July 3rd meeting, a couple of times interceding on our behalf to get clarification. Thank you. I would also like to thank, I see two of the same officers, police officers, who were here at the July 3rd meeting. I note there are more today because they expect us to get more and more unruly. But these two officers in particular have shown professionalism, discipline, care, and consideration. And I want to thank them for doing that because it's kind of a thankless job. Moving right along, people have talked about how this has affected them. My husband David just spoke, and you know, you need to get a taller microphone. The guy is 6'5", he has to stoop to, it looks weird on camera.
You have 1 minute.
We're both actors, can't help it. We have spent now $7,000 just in the past few months to get 2 air purifiers so we could breathe and not have jet fuel permeating our home, and to get window inserts to try to dampen the noise just a little bit. $7,000 that we hadn't planned on spending. What a waste. Thank you so much for that as well. All men, except for the one woman. By the way, the timekeeper has a thankless job, and I would like to thank her. She does it well with aplomb, and it ain't easy. Some quick statistics. The flights from this year, 2019, are almost at the same level, almost, and working on it, as the flights of 2010.
Thank you.
The flights went up and down, and they're going back up. Remarkable that there weren't any complaints in the previous years, but you now have nearly 1 million complaints about noise. Nearly 1 million, because, as people have pointed out, the flights are lower, using less fuel, making more money for the airport and the FAA, making our lives miserable.
Okay.
You have got to fix it.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're so welcome.
Michelle Allen, and then Joe Capoletti, or Capolet. Capoletti.
Good morning. I'm sure you're tired of hearing all this. I'm tired, physically, emotionally. Tired of taking off work, tired of hitting an air noise button, tired of running to my computer, tired of hearing the airplanes go over my head over and over again, over 100 times a day. NextGen clearly is a huge mistake. Please move the waypoints back. I don't know if you've comprehended the pain that this community has endured over the last few years. If I were a family member of yours, would you have compassion to change it for me? I have headaches, anxiety, I don't sleep. Yesterday, Sunday, I got to sleep until 6:19. This morning, 5:13. These are Burbank flights. I hit the air noise button, I can see what they are. They're not commercial flights, so they don't have to abide by the curfew, so we're talking 24 hours a day. I can't recover. The last time I slept was when we went on vacation.
You have
The
1
time
minute.
before that was when we went on vacation. So I have to leave my home that I put my life savings into to get a good night's sleep. I feel like I've aged a lot in the last few years, and it's not just the normal grind of this life. It is the constant noise over my head. I bought my house in the hills of Studio City for the quiet, and I have none. My kids can't even play outside in our new pool because it's so, try not to curse, loud. So loud, I can't hear my kids. I have to sometimes bring them in because Southwest flies so low over our house. The other day I was in the driveway, the FedEx flight was so low I thought it was going to crash into the hillside. It's loud, it's scary, and I'm not sleeping. I don't understand how it's okay to keep putting pain on this community.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, I'm shaking. I'm so upset. I'm so mad. Please, please help us. You have the ability to do so, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Capoletti, and then Heidi McKay.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. I am the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council Area 4 Business Rep. Is this the one?
Yeah.
Okay. We continue to seek transparency and demonstrate a genuine interest in our quality of life, as many people have said already this morning. I'm here to address ongoing concern on behalf of residents and business owners in my community with respect to the increased number of flights over our homes and businesses. There are many things to be addressed here. The increased volume of flights, the size of the aircraft allowed to take flight, the frequency of the flights, the time of day permitted, extent to which certain paths repeat, and finally, the need to look into the minimum altitude of aircraft allowed. New standards and plans for this increased air traffic must be fair and balanced over affected areas so that no one area be inordinately impacted more than others are. As evidenced here by the many people speaking, certain areas are hit a lot more than others.
You have 1 minute.
I ask that any permanent changes be born of fairness and outreach to all affected communities, and that this dialogue always hear our members. Every day, all day long, it's amazing. I'm here in this room at the airport, and it's louder at my house than it is as we stand here today. I work in sound, and I have half-inch glass, triple pane, and double walls, and I can't record in my studio because it's so loud. I realize there are complex considerations. Let's start with considering that the sounds that we have here affect us all, and that we need to be good neighbors, yes. But more than anything, good citizens. I mean, to think about how we as citizens, not just pushing it along to the next community, but how we as affected members can solve it for everyone and not just make this someone else's problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Heidi McKay, and then Susan Ashley.
Hello, everyone. Obviously, everything has been said. And all I want to add to that is I just want you all to imagine tomorrow morning being awakened in the morning by a speeding train in your backyard. And I want you to realize and also imagine trains continuing throughout the day and into the night. And when you complain, someone actually tells you, oh no, there's no new track behind your house. It's always been there. And then I want you to also imagine the train shaking your homes, waking you in the morning, into the night, and continuing for over 2 years. And then a solution is, well, maybe we should have a round table and a task force to decide if this is for real or not. I mean, come on, folks, we all know it's for real. Obviously, you know it's for real. You've known since 2015. We need immediate relief. The people, the specialists, the people that know more than probably all of you put together, including maybe even the FAA, are offering their help to you. Please accept it. They have everything you need to know. This, obviously, we need immediate relief. This room's a bit cranky, you probably noticed.
You have 1 minute.
That's because we've all been sleep deprived, anxiety, the flights going right over our homes. Our lives have changed, and it's devastating. I think you obviously realize that. Please make a change. We don't need a task force. We don't need months to find out that this is for real. We need it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Susan Ashley. Susan Ashley, and then Susan Drescher.
Okay. Hi, good morning. I'm sure we all have something better to do with our day than sit here. I understand that you must be feeling attacked. I mean, the mood in this room is really frightening. People have had enough. We come to these meetings on a monthly basis, and Van Nuys, oh, and Steve, I'm sorry, I can't read your, Mr. Madison. Yes, you are correct. Van Nuys is a part of this, but it's 10 to 15 to 20%. 80% is from Burbank. And yes, the flights start at 5:45 in the morning. They end at my house at 1 a.m. and they're all out of Burbank. 80% Burbank. But you're right, it's a compounded problem.
My point was that Van Nuys, apparently law was asked for a Part 175 study with Van Nuys to get the FAA to change their routes.
Right.
We should be looking at the same thing.
Okay.
Like, let's
Okay,
work
Mr.
smart
Madison,
here.
I just want to say in response to that, no, I just want to respond to that. I think why everybody's so angry today, aside from everything that you've heard for 2.5 to 4 years, is that you, in 2015, and everybody, were aware of this, and you said you thought it would have positive effects on the community. You're quoted as saying that on video. And then in 2019, you sat here and said, we don't know what the problem is. Well, where did it come from? Well, let's do a roundtable. Let's have a task force. We don't have time. Every single day that I am inhaling the jet exhaust from 200 planes a day, low and loud, over my home, it's affecting my health. I work for Fran Drescher. She's a cancer survivor. The greatest way to survive cancer is to prevent it. That's why I live where I live in Sherman Oaks, up in the hills with the cleaner air away from the airports. You are poisoning me every single day. This is a health emergency. This is the same health emergency as the typhoid outbreak in downtown LA, and it needs to be handled with the same expediency. This is a health crisis. I am now on Xanax.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
But wait a minute. He interrupted my 2 minutes, so I think I get a little bit more time, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I just want to touch on a few more things. The fact that everybody knew this, and I just want to repeat this one more time. We all know that the particulate matter from jet exhaust is so tiny that it penetrates the lung tissue once it's inhaled, travels through the blood system, and Mr. Tony, may I just have your, or Terry, could I just have your attention while I'm saying this?
I'm making notes
Okay.
of what you're saying. Is that
Thank you, I
okay?
appreciate that. Okay,
I'm
thank you.
writing things down.
Okay, awesome, thank
You
you.
have my complete attention.
Thank you, I really appreciate that, because we have problems with people not paying attention to us, obviously. So what I want to say is the exhaust, the particulate matter from jet exhaust is 1/1000th of the width of a strand of hair. Goes, when you inhale it, it goes through the lung tissue, lodges itself in the bloodstream, and is carried to the brain and the heart, and that's where it causes cancer. We are living in fear of this every single day. It also affects your heart, the flight or fight response from the constant noise. At my house, I have a flight a minute. Southwest jets, 720, 721, 722, 723. Even if I'm trying to sleep, in my sleep, my body is initiating its flight or fight response from this loud, booming noise. That actually physically, over time, changes the left ventricle, physically, the left ventricle of your heart. And you have a 69% greater increase in mortality from a heart event than if you weren't living underneath a flight path. This was established in a 2008 study in Sweden. That's 11 years ago. Now, if you all are not aware of these statistics, please be aware. We want you to protect us. And we thought that's what the commission was about. So it's very disconcerting to find out that you all work for the airport.
Thank you
and we
very
would like to
much,
see
ma'am.
somebody on the commission from Sherman Oaks, Studio City, Encino, those people who are being impacted, to Luke Lake. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank
But
you.
we need action today. No roundtables, no task force.
Thank you.
Today.
Susan
Thank you.
Drescher. Susan Drescher, and then Peter Bazinski.
Hello, everybody. What Susan said is I ditto. What everybody said here, I agree with. This has been a disgusting issue. I have a clicker. In my sleep, I'm clicking the thing because I'm trying to take all the airplanes that are going over our head. By hearing this health issue that we have on top of it, which I hadn't even thought of, besides the emotional and feeling from having these planes flying overhead, is absolutely absurd. You need to stop this roundtable task force. We are tired. You can hear everybody who's spoken today is tired of you saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, the FAA is this, the FAA is that. You must start. By the way, I was at the airport dropping off my little granddaughter to fly alone, and I asked the guy standing next to me, I said, so what's going on with all these planes? He says, oh, we just added Delta and Spirit. On top of what else are you adding? So what is going on here? When is it going to stop? When you're going to listen to us and when you're going to do something? No roundtables, no task force. You all know what is wrong with what's going on.
Stop signing new
Thank you.
leases.
Thank you very much.
Peter Bazinski, and then Elizabeth Gendros.
Stop signing leases for new flights.
I called
You're
your
in
name.
control, not the FAA.
Good morning. On July 15th, 2015, this board was informed of the impact of the impending changes of NextGen. This board, some of you members, not all of you were there at that time. On this day 4 years ago, on the June meeting, some of the very same people were asking the question, how did this happen? But 4 years prior, those very people said, should we send a letter to the FAA? They seem amenable to the dispersal flight path. Steve said, I think there will be a benefit to the community since less people will be affected. But the environmental advisor, his name I forget, I apologize, said this will be a drastic impact, and I think we should act on it. The FAA is amenable to this solution. Why don't we send a letter? And all the members said, nah, let's kick it down the road, kick it down the road, kick it down the road. And then, lo and behold, 4 years later, you're all asking, how did this happen? Check your record.
You have 1 minute.
This video is going to be released today by the various organizations, which shows the videotape of this meeting on this day 4 years ago. You knew all the problems this was going to cause, and you kicked it down the road. So now, to further delay by creating a roundtable, you know the problem. And the FAA asked you, the local authority, for a solution because you are the experts on the local problem. Send the letter today. Forget the big delay meeting. Make it happen. It's your responsibility. You represent us. The FAA wants to hear from you. You are the local authority.
Thank you.
They need your advice. Do your jobs. Advise. Send the letter. Make the change. If you had done it 4 years ago, we wouldn't be here.
Thank you, sir.
Elizabeth Gendros, and then Eric Robinson.
Hello. I'm a member of Uproar LA, and I'm a resident of Studio City in the Flats for about 25 years. You, the FAA, and the airlines are ruining thousands of lives. This is a horrendous health crisis. You allowed this to happen. You took a 6-mile spread, approximately, and took it down to, what, maybe 3/4 of a mile? Half? So we live in the red zone of hell, basically. You took a reasonable altitude that we could live with and brought it down to devastating results of window shaking, and, I mean, you know it all. I don't need to keep repeating it. But we can no longer enjoy our homes or our yards or our sleep. So help us, please.
Eric Robinson. And
I'd like to thank all of you for being here today and listening to us. I know you've heard the same thing over and over again, but there's no prescribed forum really for us to accomplish this. Like in many other professions or parts of your life, if you want to do something, there's a way to do it. We don't know how to do this. We need your help and cooperation. I moved to Studio City in 2007. I loved this neighborhood so much that I bought a house there in 2011. It was my Valhalla. I loved it. Many other people in this room loved their homes. Now it is my personal hell. I cannot sleep. I cannot work. I have an infant child. If any of you have been parents or are parents, you probably know that being the parent of an infant child is the most stressful time in your life. This is my first child. And my first child, I have had the most miserable time, not only because I'm a first-time parent, but because the noise is intolerable.
you have 1 minute.
I can't go outside. I can't sleep. I can't work. This is a huge, huge problem. The other thing I wanted to talk about is where I live in the Studio City Hills, the canyons reverberate and the sound is much worse. Everyone knows this. You guys know this. But the other thing is where I live is in the Santa Monica Mountain area. We're in a high fire risk zone. And all of those planes fly over this zone. My home is uninsurable by the major insurance companies, along with many other people in this room, because it's at such a high fire risk. Uninsurable. So therefore, I have to buy insurance out of the United States for twice the cost that it would cost me if I lived somewhere else. Okay, you're going to send every single plane over a high fire risk area. If there was a plane that went down in the right, in one spot in a canyon, do you know what a devastating fire that could be? My brother lost his fire in the campfire last year. Do you know how scary that was? Did you see the videos of those flames coming in? Just think about all the planes. Why is it a good idea to have every single plane going over this one area on the Santa Monica Mountains that is such a high fire risk area that insurance companies will not insure us?
Thank you very much.
Please
sir.
help.
Thank you.
Dan Fabin. Dan Fabin. Fager.
I know him.
And then James Sloyan.
Good morning, Commissioners. I was the executive director
that was here in July 2015 when I brought the issue to you, warning you of what was happening with Mexico. Last month, I emailed a writing to the authorities replacement terminal ad hoc committee offering suggestions that could help resolve this noise problem. That writing asked the authority to step up and lead the solution to this problem. I cannot read that writing at the time provided here, so I ask any member of the public who has an interest requested from the authority. The authority should confirm the changes that occurred in March 2017 when FAA implemented the SLAP-1 and ORSAS 2 RNAV departures, which both initially require climbing right turn heading 210 degrees with a minimum 340 foot per nautical mile climb rate until reaching the altitude of 2,100 feet. I believe it is the automated GPS-based initial turn to 210 degrees that sets the stage for the noise problem that the authority now grapples with. Prior to that date, I believe the airlines manually flew the initial departure and right turn to 210 degrees.
You have 1 minute.
I think the solution is simple. The airline should immediately abandon the use of the onboard GPS-based navigation system for the initial climbing right turn to 210 degrees. The pilot and the command should manually fly the departure using a higher minimum climb rate, such as the 460 feet per nautical mile that is required for runway 33 RNAV departures. This would cause aircraft to reach the required 2,100-foot altitude sooner. I believe this procedure would help restore the status quo that existed prior to March 2017. The authority should also undertake other measures that can reduce the number of flights over LA and Burbank now and in the future. They include place a moratorium on the authority's aggressive air service development marketing that is partially responsible for the growth in aircraft operations and have led to more flights south of the freeway. Commit to encourage nighttime voluntary departures on runway 26, which were approved by FAA as part of the authority's 2016 noise compatibility plan. Commit to shorten runway 15 by approximately 215 feet, which would reduce the desirability of the airlines to fly aircraft with more than 180 seats. Execute a good neighbor memorandum of understanding with LA, which incorporates these suggestions into a written agreement that memorializes and codifies the authority's intent to do everything it can to solve the noise problem south of the Ventura Freeway and not just pass the buck to the FAA. And finally, I note that Resolution 483A, which asks the FAA to delay departures, could actually kill the voluntary 7 a.m. curfew.
Thank you very much.
James Sloyan.
Thank you for your time and your attention. I'd like to say this right away. When you're here talking, can you hear me? When you're here talking, you'll turn away to see somebody down here, and we can't hear you out there. So every time, I know you work here, you know this, know all of this, but that's what happens. Quickly, the new pattern was created so the carriers could save gas mileage from a satellite system. That's the only reason it's there. It's there because with the satellite system, they burn less fuel. Here's the second part. On the internet, last night, somebody talking about this and he says, why don't you boycott the carriers? And I thought, that's going to cause a lot of problems. Boycotting the carriers? I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shannon Mast. Shannon Mast, and then Janet Cohen.
Hi, good morning. I just want to echo the comments made by the other speakers and emphasize that this is not only a noise problem, this is also a public health crisis relating to pollution. The pollution that is coming from these planes is deadly. It's been documented. You have a responsibility to do something about it now. I am mystified by the footage that I saw from 2015 of this commission. Now is the time to redeem yourself. Do something about it now. Please. Please.
Thank you.
Janet Cohen.
Hi.
I wasn't really going to speak because I'm really emotional about this, but my husband and I have lived in our house for 30 years. We've lived in Studio City for 35 years. I've worked in Studio City for over 30 years. We are getting ready to retire, and our house is basically our life savings. And by doing this, we thought, well, maybe we'd be able to stay here, enjoy Studio City, not having to work. And now we're thinking about moving. At first we joked about, well, maybe we should move to Glendale or Pasadena or Burbank because it'll be quieter there. But really, we're now seriously thinking about moving out of Los Angeles, and it breaks my heart to think that we worked so hard, we put so much into our lives here, to think that we have to actually move. It's devastating to us. And I'm sorry that I'm so emotional, but it's, again, well, like everybody said, you can't sleep. I'm nervous. I'm angry. I wake up every morning angry. I wake up thinking, why am I living here? And that's really, really sad after spending so much time and money on building a life here. So I really, really hope that you rethink this. And when I was here last time, I thought, oh, they're listening to us. You're really paying attention to what we have to say. And then I see this video. And it really, it made me sick to my stomach to think that you hear some people saying, yes, we want to help you, but in 2015, you're saying, oh, just put it down the road. And it's like, it's very, very devastating to me and my husband and to very many people in this room. And also the other people that can't be here because they can't afford to take off their work to come and talk to you people. So please, please, think about the impact, not just of the people in this room, but the people that can't be here, the people with children, the people with jobs that they can't take the time off. So, well, thank you very much.
Roy Wiegand, and then Jeff Rode and Karen Ahern. Roy Wiegand?
I'll take Roy's time.
Okay, Jeff Rode.
Listen, you guys, I wasn't going to come back and talk again. I wasn't going but I couldn't just sit here and listen to this.
Who is he?
You have the destruction of tens of thousands of people's lives based on noise. Number one, noise. Constant, over and over and over again. It's not the valley, it's the Santa Monica Mountains. Noise, planes, low. You could see them. But you also have another problem. Other than our lives and our homes being destroyed, you have the perfect recipe for another disaster, for fire. You have hundreds, 250 to 300 planes flying nice and low. Perfect recipe, crop dust, the Santa Monica Mountains, high fire severity zone with nice tons and tons of jet fuel. And don't just pass over the mountains. Do a nice, wide, low, crop dusting U-turn over all these people's homes so that if and when a fire breaks out, having nothing to do with a plane, it's going to be real ripe and real ready for flammable, explosive flames because soot is flammable, guys. Do some research.
You have 1 minute.
We have hundreds of tons falling on us every single month, and it's really flammable. And God forbid a small plane crash caused by something out of Van Nuys, but worse out of Burbank, because you guys are the enemies. I said this the last time. I wasn't sure if you were the face of evil, but you are, and here's why. Your commissioner said this before. It's your responsibility. You, I know you're a woman, we love you, and you have maybe more heart, and you who lied on the video, and you, and I'll tell you why. Because you guys knew what was happening, and you guys know what's happening, and you all say it's the FAA, and while you blame it on the FAA, and you want these round tables, so the FAA is going to change things, you're in the business of running this freaking airport.
Thank you very much, sir.
300 planes a day over the Santa Monica Mountains. You run the airport. The former commissioner just said, shorten the runway and you'll change the patterns of the airlines. You know what? You guys keep on signing new leases and new contracts for airlines to do more business while you know it's destroying our lives. Close the gates. Shut down the gates. Stop signing leases. You guys run the airport. Stop signing leases. And I'll tell you what you guys should do. Get off your butts After this meeting, go to your office and call your counsel, who appears to be having some kind of thing going on, but you're going to talk about it in your closed session. Call your lawyers and say, listen, we have a huge problem. We're destroying thousands of
Thank you very much, sir.
Call them and say to them, what power do we have to call our customers, the people who are making our money, the airlines, and put pressure on them to figure out how to get their planes in the freaking sky and not over the mountains?
Thank you very much.
Tell them that you need to figure out how to get the planes off the high fire severity zone Santa Monica Mountains before we have a paradise. Ask your lawyers to figure that out. And when you go home, after you make those phone calls and you go home, then you can look at your wives, your husbands, your children, and your grandchildren, and you can look at them and you can say, we did something right. We did something to help all those people who are suffering on a day-to-day basis because we're human. And it's our responsibility. The buck stops with you guys. You have the power.
Thank you very
We can't talk
much.
to the FAA. The
Please.
buck stops with you.
Karen
sir.
Ahern.
Sir, would you sit down, please?
You. And you guys fix it, please. And why don't you tell us what this council, this private council thing is?
Just, thank you.
Right.
Karen Ahern.
My name is Karen Ahern. I'm a resident of Studio City. And I want to bring this down for a minute to a very human level. I couldn't make the June 17th meeting because I was at a doctor's appointment. And I submitted a letter to you, and I'm not sure if you got it or if you read it. But I waited 6 weeks to get in to see a doctor, and that doctor is a fertility specialist. I have been rendered infertile because of the planes that you vector over my neighborhood 16 hours a day. I cannot tell you how hard it is to finally save up enough money to have a house in Los Angeles County and finally get to a point financially and professionally where you can have a child and to have that taken from you because of the flight path. It has been devastating. I have been so disheartened today. I appreciate all of you looking at me. It's been hard to see you turn. I know some of you are taking notes. And I've often wondered as you look down if you were ashamed. And I ask you today, do not be ashamed. I do not want you to be ashamed. I want you to fight. I want you to think of me as your friend or your sister or your daughter. And I want you to fight for me and my opportunities that are being taken from me. I do not want your task force. Nobody here wants your task force. We don't want to take off work and come here month after month. We want you to fight for us. Take the uproar solution and take it to the FAA today. I beg you.
Thank you.
I beg you to do this for us.
Thank you very much.
We have no more speakers.
No more? Okay. Thank you very much. Back onto the agenda. Bud? Go ahead.
I think we do.
Listen to these people.
I guess I do have some questions for staff. Do we have, is the June 27 letter out there? Is it on our website? Is it available to the community?
The letter to Acting Administrator Elwell is on your website.
Yeah.
It is available, and it was confirmed that they did receive the letter.
Okay, and in that letter, we asked the FAA to change the flight paths, correct?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so I think there's unanimity among this commission that we want the FAA to remedy this situation.
You have asked that question, and that is part of your Resolution 483.
Now, some of the neighbors presented more specifics around, flight vectors and the like. Would there be some benefit in us right now supplementing our letter and saying, here's what you should do in terms of changing the flight path?
Commissioner, we can take all that information, put it together, and then review it with the commission and get maybe another letter prepared for your consideration to send.
So I think we should consider that, Mr. President. Was the information that Mr. Fager quickly summarized in his remarks, is that available to us in writing?
It was a letter that was delivered to the members of the ad hoc committee for the replacement terminal.
Okay.
And staff can get a copy and prepare it for.
I know I would like one. I'm not on that committee, but I would like a copy of that letter as well.
Did you need information from Mr. Fager?
No.
And then just, for the record, the council members, Krikorian, Ryu, Koretz, and Martinez have all been included in these meetings that
Yes,
are
they have.
upcoming.
Yes, they have.
And
It's
I
my
believe
understanding.
they represent all of the communities that are represented here today.
My
So-
understanding is that all members of the City Council of Los Angeles have been briefed on the task force, and the four representatives that you mentioned received the letter, and we're awaiting that letter.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We don't want the task force.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment. It's probably going to fall on deaf ears, I know that. I applaud all you people that have come here today and have been coming for a couple of months now. Unfortunately, you are holding a losing hand. Let me explain why. This is not a Burbank problem. I get as much noise as you do now, so I go along with you. This is a nationwide problem, not California, not LA, but nationwide.
We know that.
Oh, you know that? Okay. Then contact your representatives
We've done
and
that. We're all doing that. You need to do your job. 4 years ago, you should have did it. Right.
4 years ago, you had the power.
You have nothing to say.
nothing to say.
Nothing.
That's funny. It's not quiet at my house. I just told you I get the noise now more than ever.
I'll make you another video for you.
Okay. Anyway, I'll finish this. This is an election year,
Try not to laugh.
and you should be good. And it's an election year, and it should be noted that we do not have a permanent FAA director, and we haven't had one for 3 years. There's nobody really in power up there. I'm sure the acting people are trying, but they want to hold their jobs. So my suggestion is I made this a couple of weeks ago. The FAA director is appointed by the President of the United States. A lot of you don't like the President. I'm suggesting try him.
Why don't you try it? Try him. One idiot talking to another idiot. Might work.
Please, can we keep it?
Mr. Chair, this is getting out of hand. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, this is.
This- Come on.
It's not a losing battle to contact Washington, D.C. and ask him to get the Senate and the Assembly together and put this thing to bed. This is a nationwide problem. So all of you have been trying, and my heart's bleed for you. I'm now hearing the noise that I heard in the 50s. It's back. You have nothing to lose by trying to go to the top. And you haven't gone to the top.
You don't know that.
I should know that because I haven't heard from anything from the President of the United States for the last 3 on this issue.
Please.
Okay, we're going to waste our time here.
Come on.
None of you want to listen? None of you believe in us?
No.
Well, then don't come.
Well, you've proved it from 2015.
Oh, really? I've lived in Burbank. I lived in Burbank for almost 60 years.
Can we get back onto the agenda, please? Go moving to item 9.
Wait, there may be more comments. On
Two comments and that's it. Go ahead.
I think others are saying.
Right, yeah, to follow up on a suggestion that Commissioner Madison had made about a supplemental communication to the FAA regarding more specificity in what we think would take care of this problem, or at least reduce the problem. If we do that, perhaps, excuse me, perhaps we should indicate that we would like the FAA to take whatever measures would be necessary to return to the previous takeoff procedures in the interim while the task force does its work.
Thank you.
Just a suggestion.
Okay. Are we back on the agenda? Okay, item 9.
Wait. Apologies.
Yes, I have just a couple of comments. First of all, in this letter, you know, I've heard so many important aspects of this issue from the speakers today, and solutions and mitigation elements. What I'd like, and reasons why this change should be made, and I want to make sure that those are in the letter. The high fire risk, I think that's very important. The reverberation of the sound in the canyons, I think that's important. The public health issues, I think those are important. And I don't think that we've made those points to the FAA so far. I think mostly the letters have been kind of a broad look at what we want, just not as specific, I think, as Commissioner Madison said, and I think we have to get down to those basics. And is that the best that we can do today? Is that letter, is that the best? Can we join? Are we in with Van Nuys and LA and in their processes so that we can be in that fight with them?
The staff is working with LA right now, and that's why we were able to form the joint task force, and we are working with them on a daily basis.
Okay, well, I hope that we are doing that and that we are going to see the same results. If they're getting results right away from the FAA, then I wonder why we aren't. And I think that we have to start, you know, I'm saying if they are, then, you know, I don't understand why we aren't. And about the task force, I hear the residents that they don't want the task force, but what I am hearing, from what I am hearing today, if we go forward with that task force, there is no doubt in my mind that some of these residents should be on that task force. They know so much, they have so much information, and if they can remain positive, if they can and come up with mitigation solutions that are comprehensive and doable, which I've heard, I think they absolutely deserve a seat at this table. At that table, the task force table.
Thank you. Okay.
Before we leave this, are we having closed session on this today?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, item 9. Parking revenue stats.
Mr. Janowitz, your landside manager, will be making the presentation on both the next two items, items 9A and B, regarding parking revenue statistics and transportation network company activity.
Thank you, John. And good morning, President Adams and Commissioners. Staff comes to you this morning to present parking revenue activity for May 2019. If you look at our individual lots for May 2019, there was an increase in Lot A of 2.3%. Lot C had an increase of 12% in revenue. Lot E experienced a 2.6% increase in revenue. Lot G was the only parking facility where we had a decrease in revenue, down about $3,300 or 4%. Valet had a nice increase of 4.3% or $32,000, and the structure had an increase of 4.5%. Overall, May 2009 parking revenue equaled $1,916,171. That's an increase of $75,355 over the same month last year. The passenger activity level rose 10.62%, and the parking activity overall increased 4.09%.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions, any comments? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving to the transportation network companies.
Yes, here present to the Commission is a summary of activity for transportation network companies for May 2019. Total revenue, $395,287. One note, as you see, the trip fee for the TNCs increased from $3 to $3.50 on May 1st, 2019. Drop-offs, we had 58,500 drop-off operations and approximately 54,400 pickup operations. For May, you'll see a 32.2% increase in drop-offs at 58,525. And for passenger loading or pickups, we had about a 33% increase to 54,414. It seems like it's following the same trends as the previous years. So to recap passenger activity, the increase was 10.62%. The TNC activity level change for trips increased 32.58%, and the parking activity rose 4.09%. Are there any questions?
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, what was the percent increase in passengers over that 1 year?
For the 1 year? I don't have the 1 year stats available to me.
Yeah. Okay, up 4% on parking, up 10.6 on TNC.
I think we've had a lot of months of 10% growth. So for passengers, 10% has been the growth trend, but we can verify the yearly growth for you.
I'm just wanting to measure or get an idea what the change is over the same time interval. So it was a year up 4% parking, up 10% for TNC, and it was maybe 10% for passengers?
That what you have up there, so it's a month over month for the 12 year, or if you're looking for the 12-year period, May to May, is that the period you're looking for?
Yes.
We'll get that back for you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just a month-to-month change.
I don't know if it might be in one of the other tables. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, moving on to the airline schedule analysis.
The next two items, items 9C and D will be presented by Mr. Carville.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Just quickly to go through the airline schedule analysis. The change in the schedule has been that Delta have added 2 round-trip flights to Atlanta, and the result of the change is 28 additional round trips per week, with 3,836 additional seats per week from the previous schedule. So Delta Airlines are adding two daily Atlanta flights, and that has that impact. Next slide. So looking at our passenger numbers overall, the growth, as Tom just said, was 10.6% for the month over month, and then that's a growth for the current financial year of 8.6%. So the financial year, so that just gives you an idea. And then the calendar year to date is 7.8% growth in the calendar year. As you can see, Alaska Airlines remain relatively flat year over year on their customer basis. Big difference in American Airlines because of the added DFW service. You can see the growth is 133% growth in their passenger numbers. Delta Airlines has seen a 30.1% growth. JetBlue, with the additional of Boston service and the second New York flight, has seen a 186% growth in passengers. Southwest Airlines remains relatively flat flight-wise and has grown 4.7%. United Airlines decreased by 22.6%. We actually visited United Airlines in Chicago recently, and they've had some issues with weather in San Francisco, which has canceled quite a few flights to the San Francisco area, so that's the reason for that. And then just really quickly on the load factors, you can just see that the load factors on the aircraft continue to be healthy, pretty much all in the 80% load factor numbers for all airlines. Next slide. So this just gives you an idea of the growth in number of seats. So about 50,000 additional seats and about same in passengers. Next slide. And then just a quick look at what's happening around the the Los Angeles area. Burbank had a 10.6% increase. Ontario saw an 8.3% increase. Santa Ana saw a 2.9% increase. LAX saw a 0.91, or basically 1% increase. And Long Beach saw a drop of 11.7. That's due to the JetBlue reorganization that's currently going on. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Any comments? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Moving down to the passenger and regional.
That was a combined report by him. At this time, we'd like to have Lucy Burdoff do a quick briefing on the Summer Days program that we have held annually here at the airport.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's my pleasure to present to you an overview of the Robert Gross Park Summer Days program. We've held this program for 11 years now, and we have it over at the Airport Fire Department. We held it on June 19th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and we had 62 campers from Robert Gross Park. Robert Gross Park is just down the street here on Empire Avenue. Robert Gross Park used to be owned by Lockheed, and when Lockheed exited Burbank, they gifted the park over to the city, and every summer the park has camps for young children between the ages of 5 to 11. So we hosted them along with their 10 counselors. Next. They arrived at Millionaire, and here's the group. We took a photo right outside of Millionaire. They arrived by bus, and we walk them over to the fire department. Next. Here you have Southwest Airlines. This is Jody. She's doing a demonstration and talking to the kids about Southwest Airlines and flying on their, of course, airline. Next. Then we had TSA. TSA always comes in and has a fun exercise. They teach the kids, they tell the kids why it's important to screen and x-ray their possessions by hiding candy in their bags. And they bring the kids up, and the kids have to find the candy. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But this is the exercise that they're going through right here, looking for candy. And of course, we had our wonderful Airport Police Department do demonstrations. They talk to the kids about what they do at the airport. In fact, they brought up one of the camp counselors and put handcuffs on him, and of course the kids all love that. Next slide. Then they also did put on their vest to show the kids how heavy the equipment is, but also gave a couple of the students a ride on their three-wheelers, and that was a big hit. Next. Awesome Fire Department. They host the event, but they also do demonstrations. For example, they bring up an older child, and they dress them up in the gear that they have to wear when they go out in the fire, and so they really get to experience the weight and everything they have on their backs. And then, of course, all the vehicles are out in the open, and the children get to go inside the truck and go around it and look at all the equipment, and it's really a fun experience for them. Next slide. And of course, we end the demonstration with the fire truck shooting water, and the kids love that. They love seeing the demonstration and getting a little bit wet, not too wet, but just a little bit. Next. As you can see, this is where we have the event. We set up tables. We order pizza from Domino's. We buy cookies and drinks. And the kids just absolutely love spending the day at the airport fire department, watching the planes come and take off. And the last slide. And here you go. I'd like to give a special thanks to our contributors, TSA, Southwest Airlines, Millionaire Burbank, the Airport Police Department, the Fire Department. As you can see, the kids are very happy. They're smiling and eating pizza. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Do we adjourn now to the closed session?
Yes, please.
Okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. Meeting adjourned to the closed session. Oh, okay. We returned from our meeting. Are there any comments? This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.